So, Hadlakas Neiros, we mentioned previously, just to quickly catch us all up to each other, is why do we light candles on Shabbos? And we say we, as someone might suggest, what's the we? You're a man. So what's the we? So the answer is, we had mentioned prior that the chiyuv of Hadlakas Neiros is not a chiyuv particularly on the woman. It is a mitzvah that the women have adapted of their own. What are the three women's mitzvahs that the women have taken onto themselves? The acronym is Chana. Ches Nun Hey. Chala, Nida, and Hadlakas Ner. These are the three women's mitzvahs. So when it comes to Hadlakas Ner, be'etzem, or actually I shouldn't even say be'etzem, in reality, a man has a chiyuv just like a woman has a chiyuv. A man has to light candles just like a woman has to light candles. No, we're not suggesting anyone to go home here and tell their wife we're going to start taking turns. But l'maisa, if there is a scenario that one is on his own, then yes, a man is a chiyuv to light candles, and it's something to keep in mind. Someone else had mentioned this thing called the chayvus habayis, that every house has to have light in it as well, and that is an absolutely correct assessment, which means that you have two reasons you always have to have light candles. You personally have to have candles, and the house has to have candles. Now, what are the reasons we light candles for Shabbos? We said we can make a fundamental difference between lighting candles for Shabbos and lighting candles Motzai Shabbos, called Havdalah. Havdalah is Eish. Eish was created on a Motzai Shabbos. Whereas lighting candles for Shabbos is not a din in Eish. Now, I will modify that statement in a moment, because someone might say, one second, if it's not a din in Eish, is there nothing to do with Eish? We'll get there in a minute. It may be Zachidish, but the siba, the impetus for the Hadlakas Neiros is not Eish, is for one of three reasons, perhaps four. The four reasons are what? Kavod Shabbos, Einig Shabbos, and Shalom Bayis. What's perhaps the fourth? Shaloi Kashal. The question Shaloi Kashal, you should not trip. Is that a subcategory within Shalom Bayis? Is that what Shalom Bayis means? Okay, and then Kavod Shabbos, it's an honor of Shabbos to have a lit room, and it's Einig Shabbos, it's more enjoyable. We all know that the food tastes better, and everything is better when you could have light to enjoy it. So those are the 3-4 reasons why we light candles for Shabbos. With that understanding, we brought up a very fundamental question. So before we get to the fundamental question, but now we understand that in all scenarios, wherever you are, you have to ensure you have Kavod Shabbos, you have Einig Shabbos, and you have Shalom Bayis. Very important. So if someone is, let's just go, for example, a husband is away on a business trip, and he is staying, let's just go different time zones to make things simple. Maybe I'll say why in a moment. So the wife is home. The wife is going to light candles in her house like she always does. Wonderful. But now the husband is maybe sleeping in a hotel somewhere for Shabbos. So he has an obligation to light candles. How does he fulfill his obligation? Well, he could light candles like regular with, 2 tea lights. He could light them. Potentially, he could turn on a light if that is allowed, which we'll get to in a moment. Furthermore, if the husband's going to say, I don't, I'm yaiti with my wife's lighting, which is a real statement, but then he has the obligation, the chayvus habayis, that the house has to have light in it, and therefore he has to make sure that there is a light in the house. Now this chayvus habayis, chayvus gavra subcategory, I want to leave on the side. It means the house that he's in. No, it means the house that he's in. I knew this was an open can of worms. It's a very lengthy ber halacha, and I want to come back to here. You're yotzei your personal obligation with your wife, but the problem is that's your personal obligation. But the place that you're staying needs light. Now, the reason why this is not so fair. Very good, and this is why I said it. Really, we should wait and we should do this separately. But because that's just the way things work over here. Is that if the area has light, so then you have light. Who says, does the chayvus of the bayis have light? Do you have to proactively ensure that there's light? Or once there's light in the house, now there's light. So if you fulfill your obligation, now the nafkamina is going to be very vast. It's going to be, well, if I'm in a hotel and there's the light on in the bathroom, why? Because the light is on in the bathroom. So then that might, by default, work for you. What about your chayvus, your personal chiyuv? Well, then your wife took care of that and you don't have a problem. Now, in many scenarios, what I just said is not so simple, because then you could say in all cases, what do you mean? I forgot to light candles, but there was light on in my house. Maybe that is an avenue. And what do you say? If you need it in there. So again, that subcategory I want to come back to. I was just bringing it out just to know what the chiyuv is. Good. We're going to come back to it. Don't worry, because I'll tell you when we're going to come back to it as well. We talk about kanas. We're going to talk about kanas in the next year. Or the kanas says, I think it's in Maril, that if you forget to light candles, you have to be moisef a ner for the rest of your life. Fascinating halacha. We don't often find such a thing. And the question is, when does that apply? So you're all like, what do you mean? He told you when it applies. When you forgot to light, you have to be moisef a ner. It's not so simple because he says, b'makam einis, you don't have to. And the question is, maybe there's another avenue. So you know what, if we talk quick enough, maybe we'll even get to part of there today. So now, let's start with how do we light candles in contemporary times? What is the question? The question begins with as follows. There is a Shulchan Aruch. Can I ask you to give me a Chelik Gimel? I'm sorry, I always forget to bring it with me. There is a Shulchan Aruch that discusses something called Teisefes Ar. Teisefes Ar. What is Teisefes Chelik Gimel of Mishnah Berurah? The blue ones are good. If you move a little bit to the right, that's not blue. On a little bit to the right, the Dirshu one is nice. Yeah, that was nice. Thank you. The Mishnah Berurah, the Shulchan Aruch is something called Teisefes Ar. What is Teisefes Ar? Let's go back circa Shulchan Aruch. We're living in with Rav Yosef Kairei in Sfas, and you come to your dining room on a Friday night, and the dining room is pitch black. Why is the dining room pitch black?
The wind blew out the fire.
No, because you didn't light the fire yet for Shabbos. Very simple. There's no electricity. Wonderful. So you come into your dining room, and now what are you going to do? You're going to light candles for Shabbos. So there, just to realize what you're doing, so when they lit candles for Shabbos, what happened? They lit candles for Shabbos. Now their Suda had light, it's a Geshmak Suda, there's Kavod Shabbos, there's Einig Shabbos, etc., etc., etc. However, that's the first person that lights candles, right? You and your Rebbe lit. Now let's say your daughter-in-law is home, so fast forward a few years, your daughter-in-law is over for you by Shabbos. So she comes to the dining room, and your wife just finished lighting candles. So there's 16 candles, and not because you forgot 10 times. And there's the 16 candles sitting there in the dining room, and then the daughter-in-law, so now, Baruch Hashem, your very tremendous dining room in Sfas, the size of, definitely not this big of a room, is light. Then your daughter-in-law comes, and she just got newly married, and she wants to light candles. Wonderful. So she sets up her candles next to your wife, and she starts to light the candles. Is her candle doing anything? Question number 1. Before Moshe, I asked for a svar. Is her candle doing anything?
No.
0?
It's adding a little bit more light.
Nothing you can tell.
You have to tell.
If it's me, then you tripping.
Okay. What was I saying? Good. I'm sorry that I made them have 14 children. I apologize. So let's say there's only 2 kids. There are 4 candles in the room. And now she lights another 2. What do her candles do? It does something. Good. So says the Shulchan Aruch in Sivches. They're eating in one place. Everyone makes a bracha in his own candelabra. Some are upset about this. Says the Mechaber. You should be careful. This is what we call Teisefes Ar. You're adding on light. For sure there's an addition of light. But it's an addition of light. Paskins the Shulchan Aruch, you do not make a bracha. This is the reason, if anyone has ever spent Shabbos in a Sephardi household, you'll find something absolutely fascinating. You'll see that the mother, wife, whoever she is, puppy, whatever it is, lighting in the dining room. And then you'll see the daughter or daughters-in-law not lighting next to her. So you might think, this family is strict Shalom Bayis issues. That's not what's going on. The daughter will light in the kitchen. The daughter-in-law will light in the den. Everyone lights in a different area. Why? Because they want to take care of this mechaber.
Anyone lighting these days is
So, slow. We're in Sfas. And they're still living in Sfas and Fez and Morocco, the Sfardim. Slow down. There's no electricity. We did not invent electricity yet. So you're asking a good question. That's what we're driving to. Very good. But Sfardim, Adagim is that each person lights in a different area. Why? Because they want to make a bracha on the Hadlakas Neiros. And says the Mechaber, if you don't, you cannot make a bracha on the Hadlakas Neiros. Comes along the Ramah for us Ashkenaz. Aval anu ein noigin kid. We're not noigin like this. So we can make a bracha on each person, even if it's only Teisefes Ar. It's only additional light. Therefore, in all the Ashkenazi households, hopefully, everyone's light's in the same area. Good. End of Sfas. Now we fast forward the clock. Now we're in the Lower East Side. In the, I don't know when did Ramosha move there? What, in the 40s? No, someone help me here. When? Later, the 60s? Chayr the 60s. No, Ramosha was nifter in? So yeah, the Chayr in the 60s. So Ramosha is in the Lower East Side, and now they have this thing called electricity. Electricity. Wonderful. So now, when you come to your dining room to light candles for Shabbos, what happens? The room is beautifully lit. When I gave you 16 candles, you already weren't sure if the final two were doing something. Now, what if there were 116 candles? What were there if there were 1,060 candles? If you ever look on some bulbs, they called it, I think called candle watt power or something. It's kilo how many candles it is. Is that some sort of number like that? Point of the story is, in a room like this, it's well lit. It's well lit. Now, it's well lit. Let's leave sidebars. What? Because someone else turned the lights, not me this morning. Okay, it's well lit, Gavaldik. If I go and I light a candle, does that candle do anything? So the pashtus of this answer is, the answer should be 0. Does it give you Tosefes Epis a little bit more? No. Even if it's right next to you, you have your 2 candles, you're the exact same way. That's the pashtus. There is a Minchas Usher, Rav Moshe Weiss, in Chelik Gimel Siman Yud Zayin. He comes along and he says it's not true, and he says there's a that says as follows: Einoi daime ar shel kuf neiros la'ar kuf aleph neiros. That's what Rav Asher Weiss says, and he says Ali Rabba quotes this, etc. Now, we could agree potentially to 100 to 101, but will we also agree to 1,000 to 1,001, to 10,000 to 10,001? There comes a point it's ridiculous. And that's what a lot of the poskim come and want to take issue with Rav Asher Weiss's ha'ara. But now, before we go weiter, we have 3 minutes left, so we're going to say as follows. So we have a big kasha right now. How in the world does Gans Klal Yisrael light candles on every Friday night with a bracha? So as far as we said they light in different rooms. Asks inquiring minds, different rooms. There's lights in all their rooms. There's lights in all their rooms.
What was the Ramah? The Ramah said
We're not knowing that we can make a bracha if it's Tosefes R. If it's but the kasha is very good. We're not talking if it's Tosefes is nothing. So what's fascinating here is Bipeh Echad, all the poskim that discuss this shayla. No one says that, by the way, Klal Yisrael is all busy making bracha batalas, and you should change and you should stop. No one says that. Everyone agrees if it is done, you could continue. You could continue. And they give multiple reasons, which we'll get to in a moment. L'maisa, before we get to the we'll call it the limudei chosim of what if you were to do that, what would you do to make a lechatchila? Let's just think together. Turn off. Well, there's multiple eitzes. One eitzah is turn off the lights and light candles. But someone else is going to say, Shkoyach, we can turn on the lights in a minute. Yeah?
So what? The bracha doesn't happen near Shal Shabbos?
Yes.
So it can't just be a bracha of lighting candles before Shabbos?
Meaning?
Why does it have to be light?
Oh, so very good. So this is why we started with the Akdama, that the Gemara gives us 3 sibas, and your pashtus getting none of them in a well-lit room. Now, first of all, I should answer you is you're just arguing on the Shulchan Aruch. Because the Shulchan Aruch says, by Tosefes are, you can't make a bracha. The Ramah says you can make a bracha. No one says, Tosefes are, who cares? Hey, you lit a candle, you can go jump in a lake. So that's l'chayra, the answer to the question. But now, and as we run out of time, we'll say as follows. L'chayra, the eitzah is going to be, and we'll pick up from there tomorrow, the eitzah is going to be is number 1, to include electricity in your lighting. Then we don't have a kash anymore. Or to light in a dark room, we don't have a kash anymore. But now, and then we have to figure out what are the limudei chosim, l'maisa. Everyone is doing this. Okay, so Baruch Hashem, we give shirim, and Baruch Hashem, we write books, and Baruch Hashem, we spread Torah, and then people get better, and many of the Gedolim's Rebbitzins all don't just light in a well-lit room, and some turn off the lights and light, some turn off the lights, turn on the lights and light, some turn off the lights, light, and have the husband turn on the lights. We're going to discuss all these different eitzes. But Lemaisa, if one doesn't, all the places we're saying they're Yaitse, we'll figure out tomorrow, number 1, why you're Yaitse if you're lighting in a well-lit room, and number 2, what is the lechatchila, and then we'll follow that with Ke Nas B'siyata.